the practice of meditation, one of the ways to talk about the practice of meditation is that what we're doing is we're trying to unconceal that it's who you're being that's claiming what's happening that's the obstacle. So when you listen to Christine talk, and so the question might be, who's speaking? Well, who's speaking is the person who wants to meditate, who wants to be successful at meditation. The person who's speaking is the one who is waiting for the prize, one who's waiting for the result to occur. However, isn't it ironic that the result that we're looking for here is for the person who's waiting for the result to occur to be seen as the barrier to the result? Is he following? The person who's waiting for the result to occur to be seen as the barrier to the result. So when we're practicing meditation, it's very important and this is what I was talking about earlier in terms of the importance of refining your practice, understanding more and more clearly exactly what it is that's going on when we're sitting here. See, the awareness that's there isn't waiting. The awareness that's there is not waiting for anything to happen. It takes a person to wait for something to happen. So that's why it's important when we're practicing meditation to understand that if you identify with the thoughts that arise in the mind, you will be sitting there as a person thinking, not meditating. If you identify with the thoughts in the mind, you will be sitting there as a person thinking, not meditating. So the idea is that it's kind of like if you're during the period in which you're sitting in meditation, the question is, are you aware? This goes back to the example that I have given before that I like from this monk that I've sent you links to, right? Where he talks about meditation, and the thing that he tries to get people clear about is how they misunderstand it. That's why he says to them, he plays these little games with people where he says, how many of you are aware that you're aware? Raise your hand. How many of you are aware that you're not aware? Raise your hand. How many of you don't know whether you're aware? Raise your hand. And then afterward he says, in every case you were aware. Right? So see, the mind thinks that there's some particular right thing here, like right answer here. So somebody asks you a question, you're trying to get the right answer, which is totally other than meditation. Meditation is simply, are you aware? So you're sitting there, right? Are you aware that you're sitting? Are you aware of your feet touching the floor? Are you aware of the thoughts that are arising in the mind? Are you aware of the physical sensations? Are you aware of the breath? And then, if you are aware of the thoughts in the mind, see, that's the thing. If you are aware of the thoughts in your mind and you're not identified with the thoughts, then it becomes possible to see the thought as a thought. If you're aware that a thought arises and your orientation is the awareness, right? If your orientation is the awareness and a thought arises and you're not identified with the thought, you're maintaining your orientation as awareness. And if you maintain your orientation as awareness, a thought will appear as a thought. If you don't maintain your orientation as awareness, right, a thought will not appear to be a thought. It'll be me thinking. That's the difference. And once you're into me thinking, right, and you're identified with the thought, you're in the world of the thought now. You're not being aware, you're in the world of the thought when it's me thinking. And I'm thinking thoughts like, I've been at this a long time, right? I've been at this a long time. I'm thinking thoughts like I've been at this a long time. So now I'm in the world of time, you see? I'm in the world of thoughts and I'm in the world of time. So awareness is just awareness. Awareness is just aware. In other words, no matter what appears in awareness, the awareness is just aware. It doesn't think, it doesn't feel, it's not trying to get anything. That's a very important thing as far as the practice of meditation is concerned. And maybe one of the most challenging aspects of the practice is, can you simply be there as awareness, not trying to get anything, not trying to go anywhere? See, if you were there that way, if you were being there that way, right, could there be a problem? No. You're not looking for anything. You're not trying to get anything. You're not trying to get anywhere. You're just being aware. You have to be clear that the person is going to claim this. The person is going to claim the meditation. I am meditating. The person is going to claim everything. Once the person claims it, then it exists in the world of the person, and it will be related to in the world of the person. And what does that mean? It means it will be related to, like, I like it, I don't like it, it should be this way, it shouldn't be that way, I want it, I don't want it, like that, right? And then once it's related to that way, then what you will express is things like, well, I've been doing this a long time. And and Christine, I love Christine because she is open and honest and available, right? She just tells it like it is. But I promise you, Christine, that what you said is for sure the case for everybody here. For sure the case for everybody here, because everybody here is suffering from the same problem. Everybody's here suffering from delusion. Everybody's suffering from confusion. That we are trying to have a life work as a person. And life can't work as a person. The problem is, in the world we live, it can seem as though it can. That's the problem. It can seem as though life can work as a person, right? Because, you have these periods in which there are gratification. There are periods when things are okay and they're not confusing and you're not in any particular form of suffering. And that's what I call the casino effect. It's the casino effect. Meaning that every once in a while, things come together. Every once in a while, things line up, so everything seems like it's working. And then the person concludes, oh, that's proof that it can work. That's proof that it can work. So now I have proof that it can work. Now I have to figure out how to get that to be like that all the time. Right? Isn't that the game? I got to figure out how to get it to be like that all the time. Which is impossible, right? Because, everything's changing. It's unstable, right? Even though it's unstable and it's changing, there will be times when things synchronize, it'll just happen, right? And then you'll conclude, oh, see, life can work. I just got to work. I got to do, and then the mind comes in and says, okay, life can work, but you've got to do more, different, or better. You've got to do more of what you're doing to get it to work, or maybe you got to do less of what you're doing to get it to work, right? Or maybe you got to do something different to get it to work, or maybe you got to improve to get it to work. right? And so you start to, do all that stuff. That's what everybody's doing, right? Everybody's working hard, everybody's trying hard, everybody's doing more of something or less or something different. And the people that sell you things know that. So look at it. If you want to see your mind, look at a television commercial. If you look at a television commercial and you can't see your mind, it's because you're being your mind. Understand? If you look at a television commercial and at 6:30 on the news, they're selling you prescription medication that will relieve some minor discomfort, right? And then at the end of the commercial, they say very quickly, but it also might kill you. And if you're listening to that commercial and you're saying, oh, wow, I could really feel better, right? And you don't understand that this is insane to take something to help you be more comfortable that could kill you, that's insane. And yet, obviously, there are plenty of people that are buying the product or they couldn't afford the commercial. It's not that it should be a certain way. It doesn't matter what way it is. That's the point. It's not that it should be a certain way. It doesn't matter what way it is. All that matters is, are you aware of what's happening so you could see it for what it is? Yes. It's either that you're thinking and you're thinking that you're aware that you're thinking. You see how insidious this is? It's either that you're, because if you're thinking, then you're not aware of thought as thought, because if you're aware of thought as thought, then you're aware that you're not thinking, the thought's just happening, right? So this is the reason that you have to, this is the reason it takes time, this process takes time, because you have to let things settle down enough over time and get used to the process of it settling down enough that the awareness itself becomes evident, rather than you're getting engaged with, and you can be thinking that you're aware, but that's not being aware, that's thinking that you're aware. Awareness is just what's already so. If you're doing something, that's not awareness. Awareness is already what's so. You're not doing anything. It's already there. So you could say that when we're practicing meditation, we're simply being with what's there in such a way that it calms down, it keeps calming down. It's kind of like the old example that a lot of teachers give with a glass with maybe some sand in it or something, where you shake it, right? And as long as it stays still, the sand settles and then eventually the water's clear. That's the same thing. As you're sitting, eventually the mind settles and the body settles, and then there's clarity. Then what was in the way is now not in the way, like that. It just happens to be so. It just happens that way. Although it takes a little more time than it takes for the sand to settle in, right? Why? Because you have been practicing. See, that's the thing, that's the difference. If you take a glass of water and shake it and there's sand in there and it clouds the water, and then you stop and the water settles, you're looking at a model of what can happen when you stay still and be aware, right? But the difference between that model and reality, that the reality we're dealing with, right, is that it's not that simple for you and I, because we have been practicing being in a disturbed state, right, for so long, and our orientation is to that disturbed state, right? So it's not like the sand can just settle. If you identify with the sand, then you will be involved in stimulating and stirring the sand up all the time. It's a gradual process. It's a gradual process, and therefore it takes diligence, and it takes a commitment, and it takes patience. You got to see it through. You got to see it through. You got to stay committed and see it through, and understand, that the daily practice of it will gradually allow this thing to come into its own. And that's the big challenge, right? To just keep at it, keep doing it, allow yourself to go through the experience and understand that there will be periods of confusion. There will be periods of discomfort. It's not easy. This is not easy. It's safe to say, it's the hardest thing you'll do in your life. You know, to stay consistent with this practice is the hardest thing that you'll do in your life. That's why people isolate themselves and go live in monasteries, to get away from all of the other responsibilities and try and focus on this 100%. But if you're consistent, and if you are a student of meditation and a student of these teachings and so forth, the idea that you're learning about this and you're able to understand more and more and see things more with more depth of understanding, that can really expedite the process. You know, the more you understand, and the more when you sit that you have also been working on developing understanding and learning the way you have developed a conditioning, right? It's the same thing. You were conditioned over time, right? But now what you're doing is you're learning and you're understanding something, and it's not exactly the same as conditioning, but the more you learn and understand that you sit with, the learning and the understanding gives what you're sitting with material to work with. So you're not just waiting for something to happen. You have some sense of where this is going. See what I'm saying? You're not just waiting for something to happen. You have some sense of how this works and how you have some sense of where this is going. And that's where the teaching and the teachers and the guidance come in. So you don't have to spend a lot of time waiting, you know, to wake up. You can the consistency is the most important thing. So if you're meditating once a day, but you're doing it every day, that's more important than if you're meditating twice a day, but you're not doing it every day. Do you understand? It's the consistency that counts. Because in between sittings, the mind comes in and tries to reestablish itself, doesn't it? In between sittings, the mind comes in and tries to reestablish itself. That's why people who try to practice meditation say, I tried, but it didn't work, you know, because the mind came in and took back over again. So you have to understand that the mind is going to keep coming in and bringing you back into, and the world at large is like that, right? So the mind is going to keep bringing you back into playing the game that everybody's playing. And that's another aspect of this that makes it challenging, right? Because the herd is flying in the wrong direction. But there's a certain power about that. There's a certain conformity pressure, right? You know, to conform to being part of the herd. And when you watch television and you listen to commercials, it's all directing itself to, you know, keeping you in a state of mind, which is the herd mentality, right? So you really have to, if you're going to practice this practice and be a student of these teachings, you really have to be willing to separate yourself from the herd. Stop going along with the general state of mind that exists.